Have you ever really stopped to think about the absolute staggering scale of the global energy market? I want you to consider a question to kick things off for us today. What single company made more profit last year than Exxon, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook combined? Just take a second to guess. Well, it's not a tech giant, and it's not a famous consumer brand either. It's a company operating in an industry so massive, so complex, and honestly, so fundamental to modern human existence that its true scale is kind of hard to even wrap our heads around. To understand this ultimate energy behemoth, we first need to decode how the multi-trillion-dollar global oil and gas industry actually works.
Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this material today. We're going to completely demystify the incredible ecosystem of the global oil and gas industry. We'll look at how a literal drop of oil makes its way from miles beneath the Earth's surface all the way into your gas tank, how these high-stakes financial decisions get made, and finally, we will answer that mind-boggling trivia question from the start. Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the oil value chain. 2, upstream economics and risks. 3, the final investment decision. And 4, the Saudi Aramco behemoth. Okay, let's dive right in with Section 1, the oil value chain. Mapping the ecosystem. Before we can even begin to tackle the complex finance side of things, we really need to understand this basic logistics machine. It's like a giant puzzle. The industry is neatly categorized into 3 distinct segments: upstream, midstream, and downstream. Upstream, well, that's your starting line. It's all about exploration and production, finding those underground or underwater fields and actually extracting the raw crude oil and natural gas. The assets you'll see here are your massive drilling rigs and wells, and the primary risk is heavily geological. I mean, you might drill and find absolutely nothing. Then we have midstream. This is the crucial connecting link. It involves the transportation, storage, and wholesale marketing of those extracted resources. Think massive pipeline networks spanning continents, huge storage tanks, and marine tankers. The primary risk here isn't geological at all, it's logistical. Sometimes there literally just isn't enough takeaway capacity in the existing pipelines to move the product fast enough. Finally, we've got downstream. This is where the raw materials are transformed into finished products, stuff we use every day, like gasoline, diesel, and petrochemicals. The key assets here are refineries and gas stations, and the main risk shifts entirely to market demand and consumer preferences. These 3 segments have to work in perfect sequence to fuel the modern world. Moving right along to Section 2. Upstream economics and risks, the high-stakes gamble. Now, while the entire chain is important, upstream is where the truly massive, capital-intensive gambles take place. Running an exploration and production company is, for sure, not for the faint of heart. You are dealing with incredibly high geological and drilling risks, requiring immense technological investment, all while being totally vulnerable to the wild volatility of global oil prices. But to really grasp this, there are 2 crucial financial concepts you need to know. First is the economic surplus. Simply put, this is the revenue from selling the hydrocarbons minus the capital and operating costs it took to produce them. It's the profit pie, basically. But companies don't just get to keep that whole pie. And that brings us to the government take. This represents the statutory fees, royalties, and taxes imposed by the host country where the drilling is happening. So the ultimate goal of any upstream company is to maximize their economic surplus while cleverly navigating the heavy financial impact of that government take. Because of these extreme risks and this constant push and pull between companies and host governments, global contracts are incredibly complex. You generally see 3 main types: royalty or concession regimes, production sharing agreements, and service or risk contracts. And here's the thing, companies rarely do this alone. They very often rely on joint ventures. Forming a consortium allows multiple companies to basically team up, divide the crazy capital expenditures, and share those astronomical geological and financial risks. Plus, it really helps when navigating complex local regulations and geopolitics. Let's look at how that money actually gets spent in Section 3. The final investment decision, the point of no return. So we know it's super risky and unbelievably expensive. How do these massive megaprojects actually get the green light? They don't just pick a spot on a map and start drilling. There are years, and I mean years, of planning required before real money is spent on physical construction. It always starts with a feasibility study to test the initial concepts and get some rough budget estimates. Since it's usually a joint venture, the partner companies will sign a memorandum of understanding to clearly outline who does what. Then come the grueling permits and environmental impact assessments. Finally, they reach a critical stage called FEED. What's truly fascinating here is the sheer microscopic level of detail required during this FEED stage, which stands for front-end engineering and design.
This is the crucial final review. It takes months. Actually, scratch that. Sometimes it literally takes years to complete. The project team prepares the final engineering design to visualize the end product, determines the exact technology they'll need, and locks in the overall cost estimates. They have to ensure absolutely every potential risk is addressed and mitigated before they dare go to the board and ask for the money. And that brings us to the FID, the final investment decision. This is absolutely crucial to understand. This is the ultimate point of no return. Think of it like a high-stakes poker game, where the investors finally, after years of planning, push all their chips to the center of the table. They sanction the estimated budget, officially giving the nod to proceed, and they open up the funding for the project to become a reality. Once that FID is positive, it immediately triggers the EPC phase: engineering, procurement, and construction. This is the exact moment where all those abstract paper plans become physical steel in the ground. Contractors are hired, massive amounts of materials are procured, and the actual physical building begins. Just to put this into perspective and give you a sense of the colossal scale of capital we're talking about, let's look at some recent real-world examples. Total Energies and its partners recently announced an FID worth $10 billion, yes, with a B, for the Lake Albert project to develop oil fields in Uganda. Meanwhile, ExxonMobil is advancing with its FID for the Yellowtail development, which is expected to produce approximately 250,000 barrels of oil per day starting in 2025. We're talking about massive, landscape-altering commitments of capital. Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, the Saudi Aramco behemoth. The house always wins. So, we've covered the supply chain, the risks, and the immense capital involved. Now, let's finally answer our opening question. To understand the company that made more profit last year than Exxon, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook combined, just consider this one single statistic. Global oil demand is roughly 100 million barrels every single day. Over the last several years, Saudi Aramco has been responsible for producing 1 out of every 8 barrels of oil consumed globally. They are the absolute undisputed behemoth of the industry. Their footprint is just staggering. The company is 100% owned by the Saudi government. Back in 2018, they produced 13.6 million barrels of oil equivalent per day. That means natural gas and oil combined. And amazingly, 70% of that massive production comes from just 5 geological basins. But Aramco doesn't just dominate the upstream extraction side of things. They are total masters of the downstream sector as well. Get this, the largest oil refinery in North America isn't even owned by an American company. It's the Motiva refinery in Port Arthur, Texas, capable of refining 635,000 barrels a day, and it is 100% owned by Saudi Aramco. So they are shipping Saudi oil to be refined on American soil in a Saudi-owned refinery to sell directly to Americans. 256 billion. Let that number sink in. That is the number of barrels of oil equivalent in proved reserves sitting right now in Saudi Arabian hydrocarbon formations. It's a number so outrageously large it effectively dwarfs any of their competition entirely. And it's not just the sheer quantity of the oil, it's the health of their fields that's so impressive. Many experts historically theorize that Saudi fields were rapidly aging and depleting. But according to a reserve report released by third-party petroleum engineers, more than 80% of the kingdom's proved crude oil reserves are in hydrocarbon reservoirs that are less than 40% depleted. Their formations are incredibly robust and literally nowhere near running dry. But right here is their ultimate ace in the hole. Remember earlier when we talked about maximizing that economic surplus in the upstream sector? Well, you do that by keeping your costs as low as possible. When you look at lifting costs, which is just total production costs divided by total production, Saudi Aramco produces barrels of oil at a mere fraction of the cost of the global supermajors, and drastically lower than U.S. shale producers. Because they are so blessed with these world-class hydrocarbon reservoirs, their economic surplus is virtually unbeatable. I want to leave you all with this final, provocative thought. For decades, we've heard these dire warnings that the world is running out of oil. But based on the audited financials and proven reserves of the world's most valuable company, Katuza Research plainly states, there is no peak oil. Conventional production alone is expected to last over 50 years. And remember, that's before unconventional production even kicks in. When you look at the mechanics of the value chain, the billions poured into those final investment decisions, and the staggering reserves held by giants like Aramco, you really have to ask yourself, are we anywhere close to the end of the oil age, or is this global energy machine just getting more efficient? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this helped map out the immense, wildly complex world of oil and gas from well to wealth. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.